Space. It's big enough for all of us. But low Earth orbit and the moon, well, it's only big enough for some of us. The very, very lucky few, and by lucky, I mean these people have worked their asses off and sacrificed a shitload to get there. Of the 195 recognised countries on Earth, only 44 have produced space travellers, and a great majority of those have come from the USA and the USSR or Russia. So, if you're not from either of these two countries, the chances of you seeing the sunrise every 90 minutes are almost zilch. So far, since 1961, just over 600 souls have breached the 100-kilometre Kármán line, the accepted boundary where Earth stops and space starts. Of these 600 brave souls, 3 have been Australian. That's 1 per 200. And don't forget the population of Australia at the time these legends emerged from. That makes the odds of their achievement even more grand. So it doesn't matter how you get there, be it by NASA selection or paying hefty sums of money to a private space company, there's only one actual way to get to space. Prepare to strap yourself in to a massive death machine, otherwise known as a rocket, that will exert an insane thrust ratio to propel you out of Earth's grip and into orbit for a good view of this blue, green, brown and white planet we call home. So without further ado, let's have a look at these 3 dinky-die Aussie adventurers, who they are and what they did out there among the artificial satellites, meteors and space junk that is low Earth orbit, also known as space! This is Threads from Me Says, and you're watching Aussies in Space! So where did Australia's journey into space really begin? Well, let's go back to 1964, Woomera, South Australia, where the European Launcher Development Organisation, otherwise known as ELDO, successfully launched the Europa A rocket, the first object to breach the Kármán line from Australian soil. Fast forward to 1967, the Woomera rocket range again, the Australian-made satellite called RESAT raced around the globe, showing that Australia was a contender in the space race. Oh, and I've made a video about RESAT too, just look for this thumbnail on my channel. Then in 1969, the radio telescopes at Parkes and Honeysuckle Creek in New South Wales transmitted amazing television signals from the Apollo 11 mission, which included the famous footage of Neil Armstrong himself stepping off the Eagle lunar module onto the surface of the moon. Then came the 80s. This was the age of the space shuttle, and with that, the amount of people passing the Kármán line had increased dramatically. Finally, our chance came, when in October 1984, Dr. Paul Scully Power entered space and the Australian history books. Australia had arrived. Hailing from Sydney town, Dr. Paul Scully Power had trained as an oceanographer and spent time in the US Navy. After joining NASA, Paul was selected for NASA's 13th Space Shuttle mission in 1984 as a payload specialist and as an oceanographer. During this mission, Dr. Paul studied the phenomenon of spiral eddies that appear on the surface of the ocean and can be seen from low Earth orbit. A fantastic contribution to our understanding of the Earth from the best viewpoint anyone could ever ask for. Of course, this made the news in Australia and no doubt inspired another young aerospace engineering student from Adelaide named Andy Thomas. Andy Thomas would go on to join NASA and then go on to be selected as an astronaut. Andy had a stellar career, making it to space 4 times, even completing a 4-month stint on Russia's Mir space station, the longest stretch of time any Aussie has been in space. And he's the only Australian to complete spacewalks outside the relative safety of the space shuttle. Andy was active in space from 1996 to 2005, and there is no doubt he is Australia's most famous space traveller. 16 years after Andy's last spaceflight, space tourism was born. If you had the money, now the everyday person could get amongst the space action. On the 13th of October 2021, physicist, engineer and entrepreneur Dr. Chris Botten made it to the second ever flight of Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket for a 15-minute space joy flight. Chris had become the 3rd Aussie in space, showing that it is possible for private citizens to survive the outer-worldly experience of space travel. Fun fact, Dr. Botten shared his adventure into space with William Shatner. Yep, none other than Star Trek's original Captain Kirk himself. And there you have it, 3 amazing Australians, 3 amazing space travellers. Will there be more? I bloody well hope so. I'm Threads, thanks for watching, stay tuned, because in a few years there could be a part 2 to this video. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed, and maybe one day you will be the next Aussie in Space!